Zhu Yuan is less than a week away at the time of recording, and I know many players are still wondering if she will be a good long-term pull for their account or not. So today, let's go over some pros and cons of Zhu Yuan and the future potential that Zhu Yuan truly holds. Welcome to my channel. My name is Katith7th, and I'll be your host today. Zhu Yuan is an ether attack agent in zzzero, and she packs amazing mobility and great AoE, but her single target DPS is also nothing to scoff at either. When first looking at her kit, she has some very obvious pros, and the first is her incredible mobility. Zhu Yuan will have the best mobility of any attack agent in the game upon release, being able to dodge in and out of enemy attacks while still doing amazing DPS at the same time. Being able to stay safe while still doing your DPS is amazing for any attack agent, and since Zhu Yuan has this built into her base kit, it means her survivability is one of the highest of any attack agent in the game. And then on top of this, she will easily have one of the highest, if not the highest damage profile in the game when played well. So please do not sleep on just how amazing Zhu Yuan's built-in mobility is, as it will allow you to adapt to fights against different enemies very easily, and learning when to weave in or out with her mobility will lead to more chances to deal damage and keeping your foes at bay. But another huge pro for Zhu Yuan is her element being ether. Some have already stated they believe this is a con, because there will only be 2 ether agents in the game upon her release, meaning you can't run a full ether team. But see, this is genuinely not an issue at all, and I believe her being ether far outweighs not having a third ether teammate, and this is for a few reasons. Ether is the element that is most effective against ethereal enemies, and ethereal enemies in my opinion will absolutely become a staple for the in-game content within zzzero. Whether it's hoyoverse, Shiyu defense, or any future game mode they bring, I see ethereal enemies being one of the most, if not the most common type of enemy in the game, meaning the chances and opportunities you will be able to use her are greatly increased. Number 2, Nicole is still somehow completely underrated and disrespected as a support agent by some of the community, as Nicole is an absolute top tier support for the endgame, as her grouping of enemies and her defense shred is to not be taken lightly. As EOD Gamer has pointed out in one of his recent videos, the higher the enemy levels are in the game, the more effective defense shred becomes, and it outshines attack buffs in these situations as well. And on top of this, Nicole gives an even bigger damage boost to Zhu Yuan because they're both ether, which is also another huge damage boost. Nicole can also make Zhu Yuan's AoE extremely effective, allowing her to hit all enemies inside of Nicole's black hole with ease. And finally, Nicole is a completely free-to-play character for everyone. No matter if you started playing zzzero day 1 or you decide to start playing at the time of Zhu Yuan's release, everyone gets Nicole from the beginning, meaning you have access to Zhu Yuan's best-in-slot support from the moment you decide to download the game. Number 3, running mono elemental teams is not always the best thing to do. If you are new to gacha games, mono element teams is when you run a full team of the same element. While in some cases this can be very good, but in most cases, from what I and others have already found, is running a mono element team is actually worse than using at least 2 elements, due to the enemies in late game having multiple weaknesses, not just one. And this is even further enhanced by the fact that disorder team comps are becoming more and more popular, allowing for amazing anomaly damage against enemies. And from the testing from one of my friends Roa, he believes Ether and Electric have the best disorder effect in the game. And it turns out Ambi is also a free-to-play character that will be able to be ran on Zhu Yuan's teams with ease. But there is also an extremely high chance that Xingyi from the NEPs, coming out in patch 1.1, will also be electric, and being from the same faction as Zhu Yuan, she'll be able to slot in on her team comps extremely well. So only having Nicole as our other ether teammate is genuinely not a big deal at all. And very similar to not needing a third ether teammate, another pro for Zhu Yuan is that she's actually been buffed, because now Zhu Yuan only needs a support agent in general to proc her passive. This is a huge buff, as this now allows her team comps to be extremely flexible in the future. Maybe you don't need the grouping from Nicole in a certain stage, but Pin could be useful. Slot in Rina. Is there a future enemy that is prone to being frozen? Slot in Sokaku. Is there a pesky enemy that needs to have fire applied to weaken their attacks? Slot in Lucy. And any other amazing support coming in the future could be slotted into Zhu Yuan's team because of this, making her a very future-proof character in my opinion. Even with all these amazing pros though, there's still some cons with Zhu Yuan. In gacha games, especially towards the beginning of their life cycle, the first few DPS units tend to be power crept relatively fast. Now this is not always the case, but it does usually happen more often than not. And at the current moment, we do not know how egregious the power creep will be in Zenless Zone Zero. Will characters such as Ellen Zhou and Zhu Yuan still be able to hold their own a year from now? Or will they be completely outclassed by future agents, and potentially have very little pool value outside of just liking them? At the current moment, we genuinely do not know what hoyoverse's plans are for the future, but support agents will almost always have more value than any attack agent, because supports usually end up being very universal for team comps, allowing their lifespan as being a top unit in the game being much longer than a typical attack agent. So pulling for Zhu Yuan could end up being an amazing long-term choice, or it could end up being a short-term one. It all depends on hoyoverse and how powerful they make future attack agents, and just how much harder will the in-game content become. Only time will tell, and this is something we can't just predict as of yet. Another con is potentially spreading yourself thin of resources trying to obtain her. Now, what do I mean by this? If you're a free-to-play or low spender that has already obtained Ellen Zhou, then going for Zhu Yuan might really hurt your pool income for the future, as we are still in patch 1.0, and the amount of pools you are able to obtain as a free-to-play or low spender are starting to come to your account much slower. And this is even more true if you decided to get Ellen's weapon as well. With the game being so new still, we haven't seen the true potential of other types of limited character classes. It might not be wise to pull two different attack agents so close to each other, especially if you're on the fence of wanting Zhu Yuan or not. There are going to be so many amazing units added to the game in the near future. Being patient and making sure you absolutely want Zhu Yuan first instead of just pulling her because you hear she will be an extremely strong DPS is going to be the better plan of action. Zhu Yuan is a limited banner character. You do not have to force yourself to get her the first time. She will always come back. And if you haven't decided yet, I encourage you to do more research on her and watch others use her as well. And go ahead and play her in game in Chapter 2 to make sure you truly enjoy her playstyle before you potentially waste your premium pools on getting her and regretting it in the future. Zenless Zone Zero is going nowhere, and I believe making sure you want Zhu Yuan first is how you should go about it. Zhu Yuan, in my honest opinion, is going to be an extremely fun and satisfying DPS agent to play, as she will be a character that truly rewards player skill when using her, as using her mobility to your advantage and making the most out of her pairing with Nicole will be the difference between subpar and amazing results. I am very excited to not only get her, push her to her max potential, to see just how much we can truly get out of Zhu Yuan. I do believe she has great potential now to stay very relevant in the future due to not being as restrictive as people believe because of the buff to her passive. If you are someone who enjoys this type of character, then I believe she is very much worth it to roll for on our upcoming banner. Also, if you're a fan of the Neps, then you will have 3 more of her squad members coming right after her, allowing you to collect a strong faction from the very beginning, giving your account a lot of flexibility for future teams. But I will also mention that if you are not a fan of ranged agents, then Zhu Yuan will probably not fix this problem for you, so be sure to also consider this before rolling for her. And please take advantage of trying her out as many times as you can in Chapter 2 to see for yourself if this is a character you would enjoy long term for your account. I do believe we'll have access to a very powerful ether attack agent here in less than a week, and I do believe she has more value than some people let on, but just remember, there is no such thing as a must pull character. No matter a character's value or strength, always prioritize your own enjoyment first. I would like to give a huge thank you to all of you for your recent support, as I am now officially a Hoyo creator. So please be sure to check me out on Twitter at Ket7th, join the Discord with our active community and for future giveaway announcements, and be sure to subscribe for more Zenless Zone Zero content. And as always, my name is Ket7th, and with that, I'm signing out.